Hey, Internet friends. On August 8th, 2023, the historic town of Lahaina on the island of Maui, a popular tourist spot, was destroyed by a fire that seemingly came out of nowhere. As of Monday morning, August 14th, the death toll sits at 96. An estimated 2,200 acres have been burned. Over 2,000 buildings have been reduced to ash, and of those buildings, 86% of them were residential homes. The investigation is ongoing, loved ones are still missing, but alongside the rubble and ruin, questions remain. In this video, my goal is to give a voice to Maui residents and their eyewitness accounts, highlight key facts that have been completely buried, provide relevant historical context, and ultimately, share with you what the media won't tell you about the Maui fires. Not so long ago, the band of islands we call Hawaii was a sovereign state known as the Kingdom of Hawaii. Because of its key location in the Pacific Ocean and its fertile ground, Hawaii was historically a prized place for trade. However, the kingdom fell when the United States gobbled it up under the whole notion of manifest destiny. With a little help from the US government, a group of American and European businessmen overthrew the Hawaiian monarchy. You see, the Hawaiian Islands offered a key position for a US military base and would aid in the development of the US as a global superpower. And thus, the final queen of the Kingdom of Hawaii was deposed in 1893. From then on, Hawaii played a key role on the world stage. Just think about it. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, which occurred on December 7th, 1941, had a significant effect on the United States and was crucial in influencing the government's decision to enter World War II. It was also key in rallying the emotional support for war from U.S. troops and civilians alike. Nearly a century later, there is open discourse on the idea that President Roosevelt either let it happen, as in he had foreknowledge of Pearl Harbor and did nothing, or he caused it to happen. You know, the same conversation we have about George W. Bush. Alas, Americans would not and could not give their consent to war without a reason. They just needed to be given one. Problem, reaction, solution. At 11 a.m. on August 4th, 2023, it was reported by satellites that a handful of small fires had started on Maui around the same time. No cause has officially been given, and this is a key detail that I just want to emphasize. It wasn't just one fire that was started, but several at once. On Tuesday morning, August 8th, Lahaina, once the Kingdom of Hawaii's capital city, began to witness wildfires. Lahaina is a small town located in Maui, and in the Hawaiian language, Lahaina means cruel or merciless sun. Survivors of the fire reported that there were no sirens or warnings when the fire started, only strong winds that brought distant fire into the residential areas within minutes. According to emergency officials, Maui's warning sirens didn't sound as devastating wildfires approached as they should have. On the island of Maui, there are 80 outdoor sirens to alert residents of tsunamis and other natural disasters. But those sirens were totally silent as people burned to death. According to investigators, quote, "Nobody at the state and nobody at the county attempted to activate those sirens based on our records," end quote. Emergency alert texts were reportedly sent out, but due to the rate at which these fires spread, the towers were down, the power lines were down, and people weren't receiving those alerts on their phones or TVs, all of which contributed to the chaos. The fires were so intense and spread so rapidly that the U.S. Coast Guard saved over 50 individuals after some people fled the fire by jumping into the Pacific Ocean. The fires were still active the following day, and locals reported being barred off from bringing supplies to the affected areas to even search for their loved ones and render aid. And this is another weird, strange detail. The incident commander of the 2017 Las Vegas country music mass shooting, one of the biggest cover-ups in U.S. history, just happens to be Maui's police chief, John Pelletier, who said the following about the fires.
We find these, our family and our friends. The remains we're finding is through a fire that melted metal. We know we got to go quick, but we got to do it right. So when we pick up the remains and they fall apart, and so when you have 200 people running through the scene yesterday, and some of you, that's what you're stepping on. I don't know how much more you want me to describe it.
Hawaii Governor Josh Green said the town looked like a bomb had been dropped, and he wasted no time blaming the fires on climate change. Of course, mainstream media ran with this narrative and has blamed humans for living and vacationing in Maui for the wildfires. Which brings us into a whole other conversation entirely. Who is actually responsible for the wildfires in Maui? According to some locals, bad government and poor land management is to blame, as dry, non-native, invasive grasses weren't properly cleared in previous years, which served as perfect tinder under the right conditions, strong winds and drought. And I want you to remember what we talked about earlier. Satellites picked up all these fires across the island igniting around the same time, same day, the morning of August 4th. It wasn't just one fire. It was multiple fires across Maui. And I'm not trying to interject my opinion when I'm just giving you the facts, but that in particular sticks out to me, and I find it weird. So, of course, there's already a wrongful death lawsuit brewing, and, quote, legal teams from Watskera, Singleton, Schreiber, and France law group firms have all independently reached the conclusion that Hawaiian Electric's compromised infrastructure served as the ignition source for the inferno, end quote. And I just want to point out that according to the World Economic Forum in an article that they published in 2018, Hawaii plans to be the first U.S. state to run entirely on clean energy, with clean energy being defined as solar, wind, biomass, and geothermal green power. And after someone sent me that article, I was reading up on how our current power grid will stand up to the clean energy goals of the future. And basically, the corporations are lobbying for our entire power grid to be replaced. So if you fault Hawaiian Electric, sue them for all they're worth, put them out of business, who replaces them? Will it be whoever is going to bring forth the goals of Agenda 2030 in the World Economic Forum? So attorneys are blaming the electric company, probably because the electric company has the deepest pocket. The governor is blaming climate change, and other people are blaming land mismanagement, while others are whispering about directed energy weapons. And I know I never talk about directed energy weapons, and you all know this, not because I deny their existence, but it's like conspiracy quicksand over here. It's too easy for people to dismiss because fires can be attributed to many things. But there's just this glaring coincidence one cannot overlook for this particular fire. AFRL's Directed Energy Directorate is the Department of the Air Force Center of Expertise for Directed Energy and Optical Technologies. They specialize in directed energy weapons that harness the power of the electromagnetic spectrum to enable airmen to effectively and affordably strike critical targets, all at the speed of light. According to their website, the AFRL Directed Energy Directorate operates two major telescope sites that are used to advance SSA technologies. One of these sites is located on the Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico, and the other site is located on, you'll never guess it, the other site is located on Maui. The Maui site is called the Air Force Maui Optical and Supercomputing Site. So let's go down the list. A little logical little assessment here. Do direct energy weapons exist that can cause wildfires? According to U.S. government websites, yes. Does the U.S. government have the ability to use those resources? According to the U.S. government website, yes. If the U.S. government has this tool, does it mean other countries have this tool? And could they use it on the U.S.? Theoretically, yes. Would wildfires sparked by direct energy weapons serve their Hegelian dialectic of problem-reaction-solution, policy changes and narrative shifts and sustainable development goals and whatnot? Sure. Can we prove that they used a directed energy weapon and that it was the U.S. government who used it? Me personally, I'm going to say not at this moment. No, we can't prove it. But what I will say is that if I were on the ground in Maui and I had a basic understanding of local politics and procedures, and I decided to dig deeper on this story, I would probably want to know who fled the wildfires before anyone else? Who from government or high society was evacuated before the traffic jams and all the chaos started? And I would also want to watch who benefits from the destruction. The average residential home in Maui is just at the median price of $1.2 million. Can insurance companies afford to rebuild thousands of homes in this area? Can families who didn't have homeowners insurance afford to rebuild their homes and businesses? With the rapid inflation we've experienced over the past couple years, the cost of building has increased substantially. What will insurance cover? Because I'm imagining a scenario where residents are left with land and no means to rebuild, nowhere to live in the interim. And yeah, that would make it hard to say no to offers on your property.
You know, there have been reports of looting and civil unrest. I mean, I saw, you know, a few kind of rough-looking people when I was down here, but I mean, nothing happened. But it might be a good idea to stay out of here for the time being. And you can see over there, you know, there was multi-million-dollar beachfront houses were lost. You know, I mean, I know every house on Maui nowadays is almost every house is going to be over $1 million. But all of my neighbors and I are interested in what the news actually is, because we don't have access to the internet, not cellular, not cable internet. We don't have TV. We do have the radio, but for whatever reason, the radio out here continues to just mainly play music. I've heard very few broadcasts of news, and I don't know if that's just my timing of listening to it, but there's really been very little information.
I live on Maui. The media is lying and or covering up the extent of the damage and the death count. I personally know people that are telling me the death and destruction is way worse than we're being told. I am witnessing the cover-up by the media firsthand.
So my final question that the media would never ask is, are we witnessing a land grab at fire sale prices in the future? Internet friends, in part one of my What the Media Won't Tell You About the Maui Fire series, we covered the history of the sovereign kingdom of Hawaii and how the former capital city of that kingdom was ravaged by devastating fires on August 8, 2023. While the governor of Hawaii blamed the fires on climate change, and President Biden couldn't even be bothered to provide a comment on the tragedy, Lahaina locals insist there's more to this story than what's being reported by the media. In this video, it's my goal to cover all the underreported and unreported details. Here's what the media won't tell you about the Maui fires, Part 2.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
On August 8th, the historic town of Lahaina on the island of Maui, a popular tourist spot, was destroyed by a fire that seemingly came out of nowhere, accompanied by high-speed winds which spread fire at a rapid rate, making evacuations difficult, if not impossible, leaving some locals to jump into the Pacific Ocean to escape the flames. As of today, August 16th, the death toll sits at 106 individuals. What they're calling wildfires started early in the morning, and many have reported that school was canceled, leaving children at home by themselves while parents went to work. I hope you understand I didn't want to say that in my first video because it's just so horrible. But for the search and rescue over the last week, it's been of high concern, of course, to the parents whose children are still missing. And there's been talk that the real numbers are being suppressed. Like I said in the previous video, even though Hawaii's 400 sirens make up what the state calls the biggest integrated outdoor all-hazard public safety warning system in the world, on the day of the fire, no sirens went off at all, alerting civilians to the danger. And to make matters worse, a state official held back on letting residents use water to protect their property from the fires. The fight over water went on for most of the day, and the water didn't arrive until it was too late. Quote, firefighters describe the wind-driven fires bearing down on Lahaina as being like a blowtorch. 25 to 30 firefighters were staring down at the flames as their hydrants went dry. End quote. So we've got no warning sirens that went off, power lines and internet that were down so people couldn't get warning alerts on their cell phones or televisions. And when the fire claimed Lahaina, people couldn't even turn on the water hose because there was no water. The fire hydrants were dry. Again, this strikes me as very odd, very weird, and obviously horrible. Because fires across Maui all popped up around the same time, just like they did with the Canadian wildfires early this year. And every system they had in place to protect and warn the people, they all failed. Maui Police Chief John Pelletier, who was the incident officer during the 2017 Las Vegas shooting, one of the biggest cover-ups in American history, estimated the number of missing people at approximately 1,000, though he cautioned that, honestly, we don't know.
No comment?
You have to look up what photo. No comment right now, guys.
No comment?
Yeah.
Talking to the chief, sir.
Yeah. I understand.
Why doesn't he want to speak to the people? Only to a camera. Why are you shaking your head, sir? You don't want to answer, huh? Okay.
We'll talk to you another time, guys.
Yeah, he won't talk to us another time. That's the thing. It's a very cowardly move. It's shocking.
In response to the devastation, President Biden wrote on Twitter on August 14th, quote, "We're laser focused on getting aid to survivors, including critical needs assistance, a one-time $700 payment per household, offering relief during an unimaginably difficult time," end quote. Laser focused, huh? Reported in Newsweek, quote, "Political opponents and commentators describe the sum as insulting and compared it with the more than $113 billion worth of aid the U.S. has sent to Ukraine as it defends itself against an ongoing Russian invasion. On Monday, the government announced it was sending $200 million in defensive capabilities," end quote. They've sent hundreds of billions of dollars in aid throughout the year to Ukraine, but to our own citizens? $700 per household after they've lost everything?
This is footage earlier at Napili Park. I didn't feel safe speaking freely about the situation while I was there, but the police are issuing permission slips for residents to freely come and go to their homes to other parts of the island. Going to walk along the line so you can see there are thousands of people here at this park. There were two separate locations where they told people to come get these permission slips, which would allow them to leave their houses, travel to other parts of the island that were unaffected, and return. Now, one very important thing to note with all of this is many of these people, including us, live approximately 20 minutes away from the fire, and we are very, very far away from any structure or any, any building, car, anything like that that was directly affected by the fire. We watched the fire from very far away. I've interviewed people who cannot get their medication, and they're being given a choice of leave your house without being able to potentially come back and be homeless downtown, live in your car, whatever, and then you can get your medication, then you can get the food you want to eat, then you can get the water you want to drink, or stay here and eat the food that we designate.
There is one road in and one road out of Lahaina, and our own government is blocking aid to the victims of this fire. So those good Samaritans who want to help are having to travel by water to distribute aid.
People doing everything that they can. I'm KITV4's Jeremy Lee. Coming up, the effort here in Kihei, improvised, in which people have just shown up to make sure that goods are ferried over from Kihei over to Lahaina.
We wondered out loud in part 1 of this video if this would be a land grab. You know, never let a good crisis go to waste. And unfortunately, vultures are circling Lahaina, with the majority of the damaged structures being residential. Developers and investors are already contacting victims of the fire to make an offer on their land. We speculated that insurance companies wouldn't be able to insure the homes and businesses because of rapid inflation, and the average cost of a home in Maui being $1.2 million. The estimated devastation is $3.2 billion in insurance coverage. Many residents didn't have homeowners insurance because the homes were older, and according to some locals, a lot of the land ownership wasn't documented because it's native sacred land. So one can assume the insurance payouts, if they ever do happen, will be a total mess. Hawaiian Electric is a 100-year-old utility company that serves 95% of Hawaii, and the company is now being sued by a group of people because it's believed that its down power lines caused the deadly Lahaina fire. On August 15th, shares of Hawaiian Electric stock fell 31% because investors are worried about the company's possible liabilities after the wildfires in Maui. It's looking like they'll take the brunt of the blame for all of this. And like we said in the last video, will Hawaiian Electric be replaced to facilitate a clean energy system for a new smart city, like the World Economic Forum predicted back in 2018? Only time will tell. All of the other stories about how fires started, land mismanagement and government oversight, rumors of explosions, rumors of directed energy weapons have all been, quote unquote, debunked by fact checkers on social media websites before anything has ever been investigated to control whatever narrative they've got going on here. I even got censored last night on Instagram for talking about these theories and facts, even though I didn't endorse them directly. Apparently, you can't even read from government websites and say the military's AFRL's Directed Energy Directorate, which specializes in DEWs, as it says directly on their website, very plainly right up front here, is stationed right on Maui. Apparently, you can't say that the Maui site is called the Air Force Maui Optical Supercomputing Site. It's just not allowed. You also apparently can't say that in the aftermath of a wildfire when all the news has died down. The majority of insurance investigations say that humans are to blame for these wildfires, not lightning or climate change, but arson or accident. And that's what the media won't tell you about the Maui fires.
We are a community that relies on family, on ohana, whether by blood or by friendship. But like many others, my son's home burned down. My daughter's home burned down.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday. And lightning struck at home on a little lake that's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette.
Hey Internet friends, in previous videos I've given you the timeline of the Maui fires. We've documented the events that took place the day of the fires, called out the cast of characters associated with the safety and protection of Lahaina, and discussed a string of strange coincidences and anomalies around this tragedy. While I'm recording this, I'm showing you the updated Google Maps view of post-fire Lahaina. A few weeks have passed since the last installment of this series. Since then, I've been compiling and saving important clips, and I wanted to take some time and interview some Lahaina residents, some of whom are internet friends who lost everything. Additionally, I wanted to wait for government response and see what would emerge. The population of Lahaina is reportedly around 13,000, and as of this week, 1,000 people, including children, might still be missing. Here's what the Lahaina mayor said in response to questions of missing children.
Are there children that have been found, and is there any hesitance to announce that, because that'll obviously just be a different level of heartbreak?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. How many children are missing? You know.
I knew the answer to that. I'd be happy to answer that.
You have no estimate as to how many children are missing?
I guess
Nothing?
we can end this right now if you guys want. Sorry.
This is one of the biggest questions that the people of Lahaina have, but you don't want to answer.
It always takes one or two to ruin it for everybody. Please, this is our first only.
Well, we can say that about you. You ruined it for everyone.
You're welcome to say it. You're the media. You can say whatever you want.
You're a disaster.
The Maui department, okay? The press show is over. Okay?
So he's not gonna answer my
done.
question.
Thank you.
Yeah, take pictures of me.
There's no need for hacking.
You're with Maui Police, right?
Yeah, he's done with the press conference.
I appreciate your patience. Sir.
Yeah.
Get out of my way. Who are you?
With the Maui Police Department.
Okay, and what's my crime? You're literally pushing me.
The press conference is
I
over.
don't f***ing care.
Can I just say that, yes, we all hate gotcha journalism, but this was not gotcha journalism. This was a legitimate question and concern of many. And the body language, tone, and treatment of these questions from these individuals is not reflective of people who are saddened, shocked, or anything. They just look defensive. Like I mentioned in previous videos, it really looks like the Hawaiian Electric Company is going to take the blame for all of this. But one thing that needs to be said is that Hawaiian Electric wasn't responsible for not managing the dry tall grasses that served as an accelerant to the fire. Hawaiian Electric was not responsible for not sounding the sirens. Hawaiian Electric was not responsible for keeping the water from Lahaina during the fire's peak hours. Hawaiian Electric wasn't responsible for barricading the roads while people tried to flee, as reported by the Associated Press finally on August 24th, after many citizen interviews said that the roads were barricaded and blocked by police. And as far as I know, Hawaiian Electric wasn't responsible for the disaster crisis management in the aftermath. Let's take a closer look at some of the characters who were responsible for the aforementioned. Hawaii's government website's called Kaleo Manuel one of 200 inaugural Obama leaders. And the Obama Foundation said that Manuel believed that ancient wisdom will help save the earth. However, reports say that Manuel is blamed for delaying the state's permission to use water from the West Maui stream. His reluctance to act may have made it harder to save Lahaina from the wildfire. Manuel, who, quote, initially balked at West Maui Land Company's requests for additional water to help prevent the fire from spreading to properties managed by the company, end quote, has now been reassigned. He's been reassigned by the state, not fired, and now is being actively defended by them.
I had fire hose down at the fire hydrant down here where I was going to try to protect the house myself. And the fire hydrant was dry. There was no water. The hoses had no water.
After a complaint that he delayed the release of stream water to fight the fires, Kaleo Manuel was reassigned from being the deputy in charge of the State Water Commission. That led to protests from environmentalists and Native Hawaiian water activists who see Manuel as key to fair distribution of water, including to Kuleana farmers.
I'm really deeply concerned with how Kaleo Manuel is being treated in the media in particular, and some of the very nasty, I would say racist in some cases, and anti-Hawaiian articles that have been written about him.
Moving on to the next character, we have Maui Police Chief John Pelletier. I just wanted to make a quick mention of some things that have been pointed out about him. First thing, obviously, Pelletier was the police captain in Las Vegas during the 2017 Las Vegas shooting. that they totally covered up, by the way, and we never got a motive for the lone gunman that was allegedly the culprit. 2, on his LinkedIn, it says that he graduated from the FBI Academy. Usually when you graduate from the FBI Academy, you go to work for, I don't know, the FBI? So is he the FBI stooge that serves as the police captain, police chief in these major hot points across the U.S.? I'm moving out of my town if he becomes the police chief here. What did stick out to me was this clip from 2022 where he had 7 complaints filed against him from his staff.
Maui Police Chief John Pelletier has been on the job for about 7 months now and has racked up 7 official work environment complaints. The employees who filed the grievances don't want to speak out because of fear of retaliation.
There was no leadership. It was a dictatorship.
Former Maui Police Department Lieutenant William Hankins had more than 30 years of service under his belt. Hankins worked under 5 different chiefs, but says he retired early because of Pelletier, alleging the recently installed head created what he calls a hostile and toxic work environment from the very first meeting.
Sounds like Pelletier cleaned house as soon as he got there. He got all the good guys to leave.
I gotta tell you, I met with them. I'm also the coroner, for those that don't know that. I'm also the coroner, for those that don't know that. I'm also the coroner, for those that don't know that.
Let's move on to more of how the government has handled this situation on an island where military presence was already high. And it should be noted that on a national level, there's been a total media blackout on this situation, which is why I wanted to document our findings on here. So much gets lost in the next big distraction. It's looking like it's going to be threat of virus lockdown next. So let's remember these important details because in my opinion, and not to fearmonger, never to fearmonger, okay? Just like we've been establishing a pattern on this channel of fires, of lack of insurance, of climate change lockdowns, okay? It's all been predicted. Just based on the data we've accumulated on this channel, what has happened in Lahaina could happen in any one of our towns. So when in doubt, paint your roof blue, I guess. I told you in the last video that Good Samaritans were sneaking in supplies to Lahaina by boat because FEMA response has been abysmal. Even though Joe Biden was quote unquote laser focused, y'all, laser focused on getting Lahaina what they needed. You know, what they needed, anything under $700 per household, okay? However, it's been reported that over the last 10 days that Lahaina survivors are becoming sick from the government-provided drinking water. One citizen said, quote, "We're experiencing now an issue with the water supply. We're being told that the water is not safe to drink. It's also not safe after boiling, which is quite frightening, and we don't know how long these restrictions are going to be lasting on the public. We're also hearing that the potable water being brought in by government officials is making people ill for whatever reason." FEMA confirmed on August 30th that they have no plans of giving more than $700 of aid per household. Let me reiterate, per household. So even if it was per victim, and it's not, but let's say it was, there's a population of 13,000 on Lahaina, and that's $9 million in total government aid being given. But we cash billion-dollar checks all day for Ukraine. I also wanted to include this video from this Hawaiian captain where he says he saw news of the fire and he went straight away to Maui to rescue people and deliver aid, and some of his attempts to deliver aid were blocked.
What I couldn't understand is that why did we have to bring supplies with the boats? Why did we have to transport supplies from Ma'alaya to Kahana by boat when everything was on trucks waiting at the roadblock to get in? When we delivered the next day, that night, I get a call from my friend Kamaili Alkan. He tells me he's got 9 pallets of food to go to the Kahana. So we took over 9 pallets of food, water, supplies. Where was the county? Where was the state? Where was the Red Cross? There was no aid for the people there.
You know, somehow, even though the government couldn't deliver clean drinking water, they couldn't deliver any water at all, by the way, while everything was burning down. They couldn't sound a single siren. They couldn't help these poor people while they were being burned alive. While all that is true, they weren't able to do any of that. Somehow, in the last couple of weeks, they were able to completely lock down Lahaina They barricaded the city, and they put up miles and miles of black fencing. And there's even reports of private police and military presence to double down on this total media blackout. And what is, in my opinion, a total cover-up.
On ensuring that the media and anyone else can't see what's going on here in Lahaina, West Maui. There are miles and miles of this black fence going up that was not here before, that is obscuring ground zero and making sure no one can see what's going on inside of there from the road. No one can get in there. No one can take any pictures. And then I've also seen these weird foreign police cars showing up, these special police, I'm not sure what to call them. This is a Nissan, but there's quite a large presence of these.
To top it all off, they're spraying pink glue all over Lahaina. Reported by NBC, quote, with more of the burn zones searched each day, the charred black earth and ash will soon turn pink, as a water-based glue is applied to prevent winds and rains from kicking it up and running off into the ocean. The EPA says while the glue has not been used extensively on other wildfires, it's environmentally safe, naturally breaking down after about 6 months, or if it's physically disturbed by people walking on it, end quote. So my understanding of this is that they're spraying the ground pink with this pink glue for climate erosion purposes, and it's pink, so it indicates that the area has been investigated. Or I suppose, theoretically, hypothetically, allegedly, in the wrong hands, the area will be sprayed pink on what's been covered up, and the crime scene contaminated in the name of climate change. But hey, it's just more being added on to the pile because they already admit that a lot of the evidence has been destroyed anyway. I know y'all probably want me to cover and ask questions like, how can a normal fire burn cars like this? Why are blue cars, blue roofs, and blue umbrellas left unburnt in the charred remains? But we covered a lot of that in previous videos, and I just want you to remember that Hawaii is a strategic location for the United States military, making it a huge target. And while there is a huge military presence in Hawaii, there's a huge push for investors and even governments to kick locals out of their homeland and use that land to transform it to a build back better situation. Lahaina is prime real estate, and vultures are circling it as we speak. This concludes my entire series. I'm probably not going to do any more videos on this. I will probably put all 3 of my videos on Lahaina together in a comprehensive 30-minute video for greater understanding. As always, our thoughts and prayers go out to those who were affected by this fire. We pray for justice and healing for all those who were wronged. And personally, I pray for discernment for all of those who have watched this go down. Hey internet friends, if you're a homeowner or you want to become a homeowner one day, you're gonna want to watch this video. At the heart and soul of the American dream is homeownership. More specifically, being able to work hard for fair pay, buy a home and start a family. Bricks and beams, hopes and dreams, the ability to come from nothing, to be no one, and eventually make a name for yourself, and leave behind a tangible legacy for your family. The family farm, the family business, whatever it might be. But what if the American dream is quickly fading before our eyes, leaving only a nightmare behind? Because trends taking place in California and Florida under the limp excuse of climate change and rapid inflation are leading the way to the brave new world, one in which our children will not be afforded the same opportunities we were in this once great country. In an unforeseen event such as a fire, your homeowner's insurance will typically cover the losses and damage to your property. And so your mortgage lender wants to ensure that your property is insured when you have a mortgage. Because of this, lenders typically demand evidence that you have homeowner's insurance. Well, the problem is insurance companies are leaving California on the excuse of climate change, with the recent years of wildfires compounded with rapid inflation. They're claiming that these factors are basically causing insurance companies to pay a lot more for a loss than they have in the past. As a result, these insurance agencies are raising their rates. For example, for a $1 million house in California, people were paying $1,800 in homeowners insurance per year. And now, rates are jumping from $1,800 per year to $10,000 to $15,000 per year. And if you have a mortgage, this is lumped into your monthly payment. So people who are paying $150 a month towards insurance on top of what they owe on their house plus interest are now paying upwards of $1,200 per month just in insurance fees, making basic homeownership unaffordable for the average person. According to the Federal Reserve Bank, the median home sales price in the United States is $436,000. And home buyers now need $117,000 in annual income to afford a median-priced home in the U.S. The problem is, inflation is happening so rapidly. Even though they lie about the numbers, they're going to